Hey there, welcome back to QuickBooks Desktop 2022. This is Cindy. We are moving now into Module 6 where we're talking about how to work with items and inventory. We're going to start off in this first video just talking about where the items list is and how you would actually go through and set up an item or an inventory part. There are actually two parts to this video, so make sure you watch videos number 1 and 2. Let's go ahead and flip over to QuickBooks and we'll get started entering some of those items. If you're looking at your home screen, you're going to see an icon here that says Items and Services. That's where you want to click to go ahead and see all of these different items that you would either sell to your customers or purchase maybe for resale. When you first set up your QuickBooks company file, this list will be empty. You won't have any items. You'll have to go through and set these up yourself. I wanted to go through this list because I want to point out that each of the items that you create can be set up as one of these different types that you see in this column. Some companies will have 3 or 4, maybe 6, 7 items. Other companies might have over 1,000. It just depends on what your business actually does. Let's go through and look at some of these, starting with the type called Service. What you'll find is that based on the type, the names will be in alphabetical order over here. Think of a service as an actual service that you provide to your customers. If you look at framing, that's a service you provide. Labor would be a service. Repairing, that would be a service as well. Sometimes you're going to have items that are main items, and then you'll have sub-items below. Carpet and drywall are sub-items of this word subs. The next type that you're going to see down here are your inventory parts. You'll notice for each of these inventory parts, you're going to see the total quantity that you have on hand. These are physical parts that you buy or sell. The way that this number changes is when you sell this item, meaning you put it on an invoice to sell it, this number will go down. When you purchase this, the number will go up. When you're entering your expenses where you've actually made the purchase of these items, you're going to see on the bottom of that screen will be a tab that says Items, and you'll be able to actually put that item on that tab. Let me show you what I'm referring to. I'm going to flip back to Home for a moment. And let's just say that you were using the Write Checks feature down here. Now, I know we haven't gone through this yet, but you're going to see on every type of expense that you enter, you're going to have the same screen. Down here, you could either put this to an expense, which is your chart of accounts, or this is your Items tab here where you can pick an item. If I pick door frame and I say that I ordered a quantity of 2 of these, then what will happen is over here, when I look at door frame, this 21 will actually go to 23. You can also manually adjust this inventory. We're actually going to talk about that down in video number 7 of this module. The next type I want to point out are non-inventory parts. These are physical products or parts that you have, but you don't keep a record of how many you have in inventory. You might keep 2 or 3 on hand all the time just in case you need them, or you might order them as you need them, but you don't really keep track of the quantity you have for non-inventory parts. Below that, you're going to see what they call other charges. These are miscellaneous type things. You'll notice there's a freight reimbursement here. There's a delivery charge. They've got one set up for permit. I did want to point out this next one that says subtotal over here. You may not use this very often, but what will happen is if you had 6 or 7 line items on an invoice or an estimate, and you want to subtotal those, you can just add this as the next line and it will actually subtotal everything above it that it hasn't already subtotaled. These are groups down here. If you create estimates and you're constantly creating an estimate for the same thing, and maybe it has 100 different line items, instead of typing those line items every time, you can create a group, and that group can include those line items. That way, the next time you need to put those on an estimate or an invoice, you just type this group name and it will pre-populate all of those items for you. There is a place to put a discount on your invoice if you'd like, and it will figure the discount for you. And also you can set up a line item as a payment. I personally wouldn't put payments on an invoice. I would make those a separate transaction, but you do have that ability. And then the last couple of types I want to mention are your sales tax items and your sales tax group. When we get to the videos where we talk about sales tax, this is where we're going to come to actually create those items. And then if you have several you pay and pay to one entity, you can create a group to include those. That gives you a quick overview of the different types of items that you can set up in QuickBooks. What I want to do now is go ahead and set up a service item with you, just so you can get a feel for how to set up these items. Anywhere in this list, you just right-click and you'll see the new option here. Notice there's also an edit option if you needed to edit one of the items you already created. You can duplicate an item. If there's a new one you need that's similar to one you already have, you can duplicate it and then make those few changes you need. You can also delete an item. You cannot delete an item if you've ever used it. If you want to hide it from the list, maybe you're not going to use it in the future, then go down here and make it inactive so it hides it from this list. For now, we're going back to new so that we can create our new service item. The first thing QuickBooks asks you is what type of item is this? And these are the types we just mentioned. I'm going to say it's a service item, and we'll actually call this one a consultation. If this is a sub-item of another, you can check the box and pick the item it's a sub-item of. Remember the example where carpet is a sub-item of subs? But this one's not. This is just a new item. And then if you're using the unit of measurement feature, you can create a new unit of measurement. They have one set up here. It looks like they sell things each by the case, for example. And then, of course, you have a description area. If this is going to change all the time, you can just leave it blank. I'm just going to duplicate the same item name there, and then that can be changed when you're actually on an invoice. If you have a standard rate you charge for this item, you'll want to go ahead and put it in. If it's going to be different every time, just leave that on 0 and then change it on the invoice or estimate as you need to. The next thing QuickBooks asks you, is this a taxable item or not? This is for sales tax purposes. And then the most important thing on this screen is the account. This is the chart of accounts, and QuickBooks wants to know which account in the chart of accounts do you want this to relay back to. 9 out of 10 times you want it to relate back to an income account. And this is where I see a lot of people have problems, because if you don't point this back to an income account, your profit and loss will not be correct. There's very few exceptions to that, so if you just always pick an income account, you'll be good. I don't see one I'd like to use. I'd like to have one called consultation income. I'll just create that. I'll go to the top of the list and choose Add New. I'm going to put in the account name. And I really don't need to fill any of this other stuff in. I'm going to go ahead and hit Save and Close at the bottom. And now you'll see that it has my new account name there. I'm going to click OK. And now that item has been created, you'll see it right here at the top of the list. That's how you're going to create a new service item. What I want to do now is stop the video here and let's move over to part 2, because I do want to show you how to set up inventory items so that you can go ahead and tell QuickBooks what the quantity is that you have currently, and then you have the correct number to move forward with.